Well, good evening. We'll go ahead and get started. Renee, please show all board members except for Mr. White present tonight. And if you'll join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Dr. Millen, we have some board salutes tonight, so can you take us through that?
I'd be happy to. First of all, thank you for everybody who's here for weathering the storm and all the water that's out there. First of all, we'd like to recognize the Indiana High School Journalist of the Year finalists. And that's congratulations to Jacksonville High School senior Nick Fuchs for being chosen as a finalist for the Indiana High School Journalist of the Year award. He is one of 5 students from the state to be chosen and the only student from Southern Indiana. Nick is a major asset to both the newspaper and yearbook staff at Jacksonville High School, both in his writing ability and leadership skills. Nick was invited to the Indiana State House on March 13th to be honored as a finalist and praised for his work. While Nick will not be representing Indiana in the national competition, being chosen as a state finalist is a tremendous achievement. The Greater Clark County Schools is very proud of his accomplishment. The board salutes Nick Fuchs. Nick, it's a small token of our appreciation, the board, our administrative team. Very, very proud of you to be recognized as one of the top high school journalists in the state of Indiana is a huge accomplishment and well-deserved. It doesn't come without great dedication and commitment on your part. And we're very proud of you and your accomplishments and wish you all the best. You're a great representative of Greater Clark County Schools. Yes. All right, the board salutes Charlestown High School girls basketball head coach Michael Pritchard for being selected as the District 4 Coach of the Year by the Hoosier Basketball Coaches Association. Coach Pritchard was selected by his coaching peers as one of 4 district coaches honored statewide this year. Coach Pritchard will now have the honor to coach in the 2015 All-Star Classic game, which will be held in April at Terre Haute North Vigo High School. Congratulations to Coach Pritchard. The honor is well-deserved and an outstanding representation of the Pirate Nation. Coach, you don't They moved the game to Bloomington North. Yeah. They didn't tell me. That's all right. Michael, very familiar with your work. I've had the great pleasure to watch you coach, to see your teams. The thing that is most impressive to me is that your teams not only play with great spirit, but they also are great representatives of themselves, their families, the school. Great sportsmanship. So well-balanced, and it's a representation of your leadership as coach, and obviously it's been recognized on a statewide level. So we're very proud of you and wish you the best, and thank you for all you do for our school corporation. Thank you. Congratulations to Jacksonville High School students Sarah Inman, Drake DeLapp, and Julie Biaggi for being selected to compete at the 2015 International Thespian Festival in Lincoln, Nebraska. They were chosen because of their extremely high scores, nearly perfect, at the Indiana State Conference earlier this year. They will be competing in individual events, showcasing their dramatic and musical skills, as well as auditioning for some of the most prestigious performing arts colleges, universities, and conservatories in the country. This is a huge honor that is awarded to very few. The board salutes these 3 very talented thespians. Come forward.
Wow.
She's lost. there's no more collection of great talent at this level than we have Jacksonville High School. I mean, I can just tell you that to see the high professional quality of performance from not just these two, but also Julie, is an incredible thing. We're very, very lucky, and I'm just telling you that we're so proud of what you do, how you represent yourselves, the theater program, Jeffersonville High School. We're so proud of you. I know this is just a small token of our appreciation, you guys, but we wish you the best as you move forward. Best of luck to you, and thank you so much for what you do. Sometimes we're a little fast.
Thank you. Sorry, sir.
No problem.
Gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you. And then, last but not least, certainly, the board salutes the Jeffersonville High School Theater Department for receiving an invitation to the 2016 Fringe Festival in Edinburgh, Scotland. This is a huge honor for the theater program and one given to very few high school programs in the country. The Fringe Festival is the largest arts festival in the world. In 2014 alone, there were close to 50,000 performances shown in 299 venues over the course of 25 days. Jeffersonville High School received the nomination based upon the quality of shows produced within the past 5 years. In addition to theatrical excellence, nominations are also based on special recognitions and awards, technical ability, recommendations, and community involvement. This is the second time the Jeffersonville High School Theater Department will attend the prestigious festival. The department traveled to Edinburgh in 2003, where they performed the musical comedy Forever Plaid. While the show selection is yet to be chosen for 2016, we are confident it will be a crowd pleaser for audiences in Jeffersonville as well as in Edinburgh. Congratulations to Jeffersonville High School Theater Department. Who's coming up to receive recognition for this?
You boys, the boys would have them up.
Come on. Now, we have parents here as well. Patty Miller, who leads the department, I know she has a lot of great help and support also. We have a great professional staff, a lot of people from the community that step up. You don't have that level of success without that kind of commitment, not just from you guys up on stage, which you're awesome, by the way, but also all the work that goes on behind the scenes that really makes that performance happen on that given night, and all that support. So, again, I can't tell you how proud all of us are of what you do to make us look good on a continual basis. So, Mrs. Miller, thank you for your dedication, your commitment to these kids over such a long period of time. Your leadership has been invaluable. So, congratulations. I'm going to give this to you guys.
Here comes.
Okay, before everyone gets away, I know our board would like to address,
A student just, another student just came.
oh, a student just came in, okay.
Well, yes,
Oh.
is our thought.
Well, we didn't recognize you.
Well, yep, we want to recognize you, yep.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for coming.
We said a lot of great things about your program, so.
Ms. Perkins, do you have any comments?
No, thank you.
No? Okay, Ms. Ullman?
Just wonderful performance. I loved every bit of it.
Ms. Kraft?
You just make us really proud, really proud.
Mr. Hall?
Congratulations, you guys do a great job.
Ms. Gilkey?
I just would like to say congratulations to everyone that we recognize this evening, both staff and students. You know, this is a business meeting, and so it's very nice to take a break and celebrate our successes. And so we're really pleased that you're here tonight. Thank you.
And did on Ms. Gilkey's comments, I mean, again, we're very, very proud of all of you. Really make us look good and great group. So thank you for coming out tonight and allowing us the opportunity to recognize you for your accomplishments. So. And you're more than welcome to stay around for the boring meeting, but if you would like to leave, this would be a great time. So.
Julie? Absolutely. We'd love. Yeah, that's no problem. We'd be happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you all. Okay, next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. So do we have any changes tonight?
I would like to, in the consent agenda, pull travel for a separate item.
All right, Mr. Hall, anybody else? Okay. All in favor of the current agenda and by pulling out travel for separate consideration? All in favor? I'm sorry. Motion, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Zolman. Let's try that again. Thank you. All right. All in favor? All right. Thank you. All right. Next is the approval of the minutes from previous meetings. I'd like to take all those together, executive, regular, and special.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Hall.
Second.
And thank you, Ms. Kraft. All in favor? All right, be 6-0. Thank you. Dr. Millen, I think we have a public comment tonight on agenda items.
Yes, we do. Mr. McLaughlin?
McLaughlin?
Good evening, members of the board, administrators, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John McLaughlin, and I'm the current president of the Greater Clark Education Association. As always, I appreciate your time in allowing me the opportunity to address you. An item on tonight's agenda is the proposed raise for Greater Clark County Schools teachers and other employees. I speak on behalf of the teachers, although I understand that the efforts by the GCEA in this matter will impact all employee groups. The proposed raise on the agenda arises out of the current contract between this board and the GCEA. You may recall that in 2011, this corporation faced financial difficulties. In an effort to meet those issues head-on, eligible teachers were offered and received early retirement benefits. Those positions were not filled. In addition, GCEA agreed in 2011, as part of the current 4-year agreement, to forego any raise and agreed to take half steps on the traditional salary scale, giving up one full step on the scale over the length of the agreement. In fact, there were no salary increases the year prior to this agreement, and a less than 1% increase the year before that. In sum, a 0.75% raise over 6 years ago was the last increase in teacher salaries. All the while, cost of living increase, insurance increases alone could have resulted in net losses to teachers, even those moving on this traditional salary scale. In the hopes that these austerity measures agreed to by the teachers would right the proverbial financial ship, the contract provided for negotiation of raises in the event that new money, as used in the contract, was received by Greater Clark County Schools. Roughly speaking, the corporation went from a proposed deficit of, in 2011, approaching $3 million to a positive balance in the general fund before this salary increase of over $3 million and a rainy day fund balance of over $3 million. The GCEA returned to the administration and asked to negotiate under the current contract on the basis that the corporation had returned to sound financial footing and that new money was available. GCEA was able to negotiate with the administration a 2.5% salary increase for all teachers, a much-needed boost for those dedicated individuals who you have entrusted with the mission of this district and who daily enhance the lives of the Greater Clark students. We strongly urge you to endorse the work of the GCEA and this administration in reaching this agreement and agree to the much-needed shot in the arm, excuse me, for your teachers as well as other employee groups as proposed on tonight's agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. Okay, next item is, excuse me, the consent agenda. So we'll put together items 1, 3, 4, and 5, and we'll take travel on a separate vote. So have a motion for?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Hall.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Questions, comments? All in favor? Be 6-0. Thank you. Next, we'll take the travel agenda items separately. So I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Ms. Kraft.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Any comments, questions?
Yeah, I cannot support paying for an administrator to go to an event if they don't travel with the students or with the group involved. And I feel this needs to be looked at, and Dr. Mellon said he's going to look into it, but I can't support that.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Hall. Any further? All right. All in favor? And opposed? Be 4-2. Thank you. Ms. Perkins, would you be so kind as to take the gifts to buildings?
I shall, thank you. First of all, look at that number all the way down at the bottom, $162,309.25. That is quite a month. Now, I do understand that some of these have been in the works for quite a while, and one of them is the estate of Glenn and Dorothy Ross, and they left Charlestown High School $116,069, and we are certainly very appreciative of that, and I know the Charlestown High School will use that money wisely. We have donations from L&D Millmasters of $1,500. Boyce, a lot of our businesses that we do business with are making donations for certain things that in our school family that really helps with our educational program, and we're certainly very appreciative, and I would move that we, and also the Marshall Foundation, I know that they are big supporters of Jeffersonville High School, and they're making another $30,000 part of their donation this month, and we certainly appreciate that. So I move that we accept all this money.
All right. Can I put you on hold just a minute? We've got actually one other presentation that needs to be made tonight before we take that motion. So, Dr. Mellon?
It is an honor for me to thank the Jeffersonville Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 100 for their donation of $4,800 to purchase 3 Raptor systems for our district. Board, you remember Raptor is a visitor management software that's being utilized for security purposes. Visitors to our buildings have to present their driver's license, and the Raptor system performs a quick background check. The system has been working well. The system will print a badge that the visitor must wear while in the building. Student and staff safety, as you know, is our top priority, and Greater Clark County Schools is thankful for the FOP's donation to help fund this software. And tonight, Toby Deaton, who's the Southeast District Trustee, is here, and we want to thank you, and I think you have a presentation of sorts. Is that correct? Yes, sir, I do. You want to come up?
I always like to
Big check.
Yes. Wow. We'll take it.
We've had this check a couple of times, and I actually messed up and I wrote this for 5,000. So I don't think you'll mind an extra 200. Oh, we will.
Oh, yay. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thanks, sir. The Fraternal Order of Police has been is continually looking for ways to improve our community. We've had a long-standing relationship with the Greater Clark County school systems, and this is just another example of a way that we can protect our most precious assets, which is our children. We, at the Fraternal Order of Police, love working with the school system
supportive of the school system.
And thank you.
Thank you.
so much.
Wow.
You know, I just have to tell you that the support that we get from you, from our police officers, has been outstanding. I know that sometimes this has been an era in our country where sometimes police officers may not be always viewed in a positive light, and it's unfortunate that those certain circumstances have occurred. The thing that I know is on a daily basis in our area, we are very, very fortunate, very lucky to have such a great group of dedicated, committed officers who are there to help our kids, keep our buildings safe. And so I just want to thank you publicly for everything that you do to help us keep all of our people safe.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that. We, again, have been doing this for a long time. We continue to look for ways to do this, and I believe with this donation now, I believe we're approaching about $400,000 that we've put back into the local community.
Wow.
Great.
So we're
Wow.
very proud of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I also think, Board, that there are other entities, other
Police departments and so on that are also jumping on board, thanks to the leadership here of this lodge. But I think that there's been other work that has been done as well, and to help support the Raptor system. And I know that here in the very near future, we'll probably receive more support. And that partnership that we have is unbelievable. And it makes a difference every day. So we greatly appreciate that.
Okay, and this guy's a little partial to police officers anyway, so anyway, again, we appreciate all that you do for us. And Ms. Perkins, I'll entertain that motion again.
I move that we accept the money, including that wonderful donation from our FOP.
All right.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Gilkey. All right, all in favor? Be 6-0, thank you. All right, next are the, the action items, and item 1 is the salary adjustment for GCCS employees.
Yes, Board, I'd like to recommend approval of a 2.5% salary increase for all employees, effective retroactively to July 1 of 2014. As Mr. McLaughlin articulated, based upon negotiations, and I appreciate that process, by the way, we did agree on a 2.5% increase, and that increase is retroactive, again, to July 1 of 2014. It will be reflected, their retro pay will be reflected on the April 24th paycheck. The salary adjustment does resolve any issues related to language and collective bargaining agreements with the various groups regarding increases based on new revenue through the state's funding formula during the 2014 and 15 budget cycles. The total cost to our corporation is $1,633,129.12. It's broken down with $1,317,653.13 coming out of the general fund. As you know, we have employees that are paid out of other funds. So in our capital projects fund, it's $33,826.43. Transportation is $51,003.88. Food service is $50,920.58. In other funds, $179,725.10. So there's the total amount. We very much value, I know you agree, we very much value all of our employees, and I feel we're doing everything in our power to show them how much we appreciate them with this salary adjustment. So I encourage you to approve this recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I think I heard Ms. Perkins first and Ms. Kraft second. Okay. Questions, comments? All right, all in favor?
have one.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I thought somebody else would probably say this, but since they didn't, I will. I just don't think we can do enough for the staff. And so many times they're required to do more and more and more and more. And this is the one thing that we can do for them. And I'm just glad we get to do it.
Actually, I wish it was more, but anyway. All right. Oh, go ahead.
I just want to thank our administration, specifically Dr. Dykle and Dr. Mellon. As John mentioned, it was only 4 years ago that we were in the red. And without sound fiscal responsibility and making some tough changes, we wouldn't have any money to do this. And so I just want to say thank you for your management, and that we appreciate your work. We know that's not easy, given, the budgets that the limitations that we are given by the state. So I just want to thank you all. And I want to also say, in concurrence with Mrs. Kraft, that it's nice to be able to do something for our staff to show our appreciation.
Yeah, I'd like to say I've got a special place in my heart for teachers, and 2.5 is not what you deserve, a lot more, but that's what we can offer, and that's what we have, and it's a little token. You're doing a great job.
Okay, anyone else? With that, all in favor? Be 6-0, thank you. All right, item number 2 is the King Farming Agreement.
Good evening, thank you. If you will remember, since 2003, Greater Clark has had a farming agreement with Tom King, and he farms 14 acres of the 25 acres that we own off of Utica-Sellersburg and Charlestown Road. You're familiar with where that location is. And he gives us $65 per tillable acre for the use of the land for planted crops, and he alternates corn and soybeans each planting season, and he is requesting permission to continue this farming agreement for the 2015 growing season, and there's not been any changes other than the date on the agreement. So the superintendent recommends renewal of the farming agreement with Mr. Tom King at this time.
Okay. All right.
Motion?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Ms. Kraft.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Zolman. Any questions, comments for Ms. Lewis? All in favor? Be 6-0, thank you. Next is the Neola Policy, Series 000, 1000, and 2000. It's first reading tonight, so there's no action.
That's correct.
Okay.
There's 99 policies, and just as a little refresher for you, they were put online the middle of February for your review. On February the 20th, they were put in Google Docs for your review, and we have the second series, the 03, 04, and 05, that have now been loaded into Google Docs. We're actually, knock on wood, moving ahead of schedule. I've got all 10 series reviewed. They're going now to our cabinet. And the superintendent, Pam Maples, has done just an outstanding job, just a terrific job actually getting them all updated after my review and loaded them into Google Docs for your review. You don't need to take any action this evening. I have received some suggestions from some of you who have been taking the time to review these, and we really do appreciate your comments. What we will do is get back with you individually about some of the questions you have on the policies, and Mr. Hall, we've got several from you, and we will get back with you, and we do appreciate you taking the time to go through there and making your comments, but I'll kind of summarize those to you, maybe even in an email, and see what your thoughts are. I know there was a question about the 2/3 vote on one of the policies, and that was only for a change in bylaws. You still review and revise policies by a majority vote, but when you do something with bylaws, you use a 2/3 vote, and that's pretty standard operating procedure. So, and if I know you had a question about that, we can review that later if you'd like. So, no action needed this evening. We will put the next group, technically put them out for availability for your review as of the 21st of April. Like I said, they're already out there so you can get started on them. And we'll ask you at that meeting if you have any further questions or comments about the first series. If you don't, then we'll consider those ready to go for final reading when we go to July. So that's that, unless you have questions.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis.
We're moving right along.
All right. We have a motion? Oh, I'm sorry, first reading. All right, revisions to policy 5113, student attendance, second reading.
Right. And basically, if you will remember, during the first reading, we made some changes because CCARP is no longer in existence with the juvenile detention center in the courts, it's now replaced by the Student Mediation and Reduction of Truancy program called the SMART program with Clark County. And as part of the members of the Juvenile Detention Attendance Initiative, they asked for the changes to be made in these policies. And so since the first reading, there have been no significant changes to the policy, so we're asking approval at this time.
Thank you.
And this will be one of the policies we will include as Greater Clark policies in our Neola miscellaneous policies.
We have a motion. Thank you, Ms. Kraft. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Gilkey. Any questions, comments?
Yeah, Sandy, are we accepting email from a parent as written notification?
That's a good, for attendance, yes, I think we are. I think we
Okay.
do.
Okay, all in favor? Be 6-0, thank you. Next is policy 3328, transportation services contracts, first reading.
That's right. First reading on this is, if you will remember several years ago, we had a limitation on the number of vehicles a fleet contractor could bid for and be awarded, and that was a maximum of 5. And based on some of the conversations we've had with our fleet contractors, they've asked for that limit to be increased. And so the only change really that would be in this policy will be moving the number of contracts per buses to be awarded from 5 to 15. No actions needed this evening, but it will be brought back to you in a month for your further consideration.
All right, thank you.
Any questions?
Questions for Ms. Lewis? All right, next is the permission to advertise the bus contract routes.
But you thought I was just going to stand up here all evening?
No, you,
Thank you.
thank you.
I told her she could have done all mine too.
Jumped right in there, huh?
She was doing a good job. We're asking permission to advertise 15 of our contracted routes that are up for review. They were one-year contracts. Some of them were contracts that were originally ours. We're having a hard time finding drivers, so Mr. Watson put together a list of routes that we wanted to look to try to bid out. You'll see we have bus routes 3J, 4J, 5J, 6J, 7J, 8J, and 9J, which are all Jeffersonville school routes. 7C, 9C, 10C, 12C, which are Charlestown. 5W, 8W, 10W, and 13W, which are New Washington area. So we're asking permission to put these out for bid.
All right, thank you, Dr. Dykle. We have a motion. Thank you, Ms. Ullman.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Any questions, comments for Dr. Dykle?
Just seems funny to see those numbers there. We owned those for years.
I know. You want to take them back?
No, that's okay.
All right, all in favor? Be 6-0, thank you. Next is the bid award for Charlestown High School embankment solution.
As I affectionately call it, the ski slope. The embankment issue at Charlestown High School has continued to be a problem for safety and upkeep by our Auxiliary Services Department for removing garbage and debris and maintaining the vegetation that grows in there. Covert Hawkins Architects has designed a solution to the problem. Quotes were opened on Friday, April 3rd, 2015. The quotes were requested from 7 local firms. Dan Christiani Excavating is the low bid at $93,900. High bid was $199,492, and then we had 3 in between. We had 2 companies that did not quote. The engineer's estimate was $100,000, so we're under the estimate, and that was good. So we're recommending that the contract for the Charlestown High School embankment solution, affectionately known as the ski slope, be awarded to Dan Christiani Excavating at his bid of $93,900.
Thank you, Dr. Dykle. We have a motion for the ski
So moved.
slope. I think that was Ms. Kraft first and
No, it
Mr.
was
Hall?
Mr. Hall. It's his-
Mr. Hall
it's his
first?
ski slope.
Okay, all right. And are you seconding that, Ms.
I'll
Kraft?
second it.
All
It's
right.
the Tony Hall ski
Yes,
slope.
it is. Did you not know that?
I'll start calling it affectionately
Okay,
that.
All right, questions, comments? All right, all in favor? Be 6-0, thank you. Next is the bid award for the towers for the radio stations at Jeff High and Charlestown High.
Yes, as part of the overall television radio station construction, we had to erect a radio tower at Jeffersonville High School and one at Charlestown High School. The Jeffersonville tower will be in the back of the school by the weld shop, and the Charlestown tower will be erected at our Witten property. The Charlestown tower will be much higher than the Jefferson tower because it will also act as our repeater for our bus radios and corporation radios. Quotes were requested from 4 firms for Jeffersonville High School with the following results. Owens Communication, $43,396.25. Allstate Towers, $62,000. P&R and Tower Innovators did not quote. Our bid, our estimate was $65,000, so we were well under our estimate for that. Quotes were requested again from the same 4 firms from Charlestown. Owens came in at $62,143. Allstate Towers came in at $113, and again, the other 2 companies did not quote. Engineers' estimate was $75,000. So based on this information, we'd asked permission to award the 2 quotes to Owens Communication at their low quotes.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Dykel. We have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Ms. Gilkey. Thank you, Ms. Zolman. Any questions, comments for Dr. Dykel? All right, all in favor? Be 6-0, thank you. Next is the transportation parking agreement.
Out of order. The administration would like to enter into an agreement with Jacoby Toombs and Lands for engineering and surveying work services to furnish bid documents to expand the existing parking lot along 12th Street and to pave the western portion of the service center at a cost of $22,730. Is that the wrong one?
Yeah, number 9, Tom, which would be the, this is the
Presbyterian.
approval of the
Parking
parking
agreement.
agreement with the Presbyterian Church.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're just trying to move ahead of us here.
Missed that
I
one.
like the thought.
All right.
Moving right along. We skipped a whole bunch of things.
Sorry about that. You had those weird looks on your face. Okay. Currently, our transportation department doesn't have enough parking spaces for all of its employees and has caused concern among the area businesses that our employees are parking in their lots. Mr. Watson has worked out an agreement with the Presbyterian Church Foundation to allow our employees to park in their lot for free. In our paving bid, we have also included making an additional parking lot on the west side of the facility on the land that we received from the city. It will hold an additional 30 to 40 vehicles for our employees to use. So with that, we're asking permission to approve the indemnification and hold harmless agreement between GCCS and the Presbyterian Church Foundation. No money's exchanging hands. It was just a nice gesture that Mr. Watson thought of.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Ms. Gilkey.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Any questions, comments?
Thanks for reaching out on that, Ken.
Okay, all in favor? Be 6-0, thank you. Next is the Summer Food Service Program,
Now I'm going by my cheat sheet, so I know which
Number
ones I'm
10.
looking at.
number 10.
Number 10.
The Department of Education has identified our school corporation as meeting the criteria for eligibility to participate in the summer food service program. The program is for children 18 years of age and younger with free meals during the summer months and all other times when school is out of session for extended periods like our intersessions. This program also allows us to employ our food service people for a little longer by using them during the summer school and intersessions. There is a financial incentive for participating as the rates for reimbursement are higher than they are for the National School Lunch Program. The dates planned for the summer feeding is June 15th through July 17th. With that, the superintendent recommends making application to the Department of Education Summer School Food Service Program.
Thank you, Dr. Dykem.
I'll make that.
Thank you, Ms. Kraft.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Questions, comments for Dr. Dykel? All right, all in favor? Be 6-0, thank you. Request for proposals, food services management.
This is a big one. The administration is asking permission to bid the management services agreement for food service. Our current contract our current contract with 4 one-year renewals with Aramark will end on June 30th, 2015. We will bid it as a one-year contract with 4 one-year renewals to take effect from July 1st, 2015 through June 30th, 2020. So we're asking permission to bid that out.
All right, thank you, Dr. Dykle. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Ms. Gilkey. Do you have a second? Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Any questions, comments for Dr. Dykle?
Yeah, if we bid this out and we have a lower bidder than who we're dealing with now, we have to switch? Or what is the?
Looking at the criteria, right now it's 51%. There's a scoring sheet that we have, so we'll look at the scoring sheet. 51% of it is based on price. So if they come in at a cheaper price, that'll carry some weight. But we also look at other things too, and we also have a track record with Aramark too.
And it has to be lowest and best.
Correct.
That's the key.
Yeah.
And I want to see somebody who's better.
And Natalie bought a house in our district too, so we have to keep her here.
Just saying.
She told me if she doesn't get the contract, she's moving in.
All right,
So
further,
please, approve it.
further comments for Dr. Dykle? All right, all in favor? Be 6-0, thank you.
I want to see the minutes on this one.
Next is the transfer of the bus contract route.
Yes, Vicki Mims has submitted her intent to transfer her bus Route 63B to her husband, Jack Stephen Mims, due to health reasons as of March 18th, 2015. All terms and conditions will remain the same, so the superintendent's asking approval of that to her husband.
Okay.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Ms. Zillman, second. All right. Any questions, comments for Dr. Dykle on the bus contract route? Okay. All in favor? Be 6-0. Thank you.
All right, now we'll try this one again.
All right. This is the Jacoby Toombs and Lands engineering contract.
The administration would like to enter into an agreement with Jacoby Toombs and Lands for engineering and surveying services to furnish bid documents to expand the existing parking lot along 12th Street and to pave the western portion of the service center at a cost of $22,730. We've already, last board meeting, we already went out for the permission to bid, and then we'll come back and bring it to you, but we still have other things that we have to check. But we've been working with Jim here for probably, 6-8 months on this issue. So it wasn't something we just did, within the last month or so. We've been meeting with him. We've had various meetings looking at how we can separate it, break it up. The whole facility was like, $800,000 to pave, and I didn't have that much money in capital projects to do that. So he's put a lot of effort into it and, preparing the bid documents, and we need to pony up and pay him. So, okay.
Thank you, Ms. Kraft. Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Do we have any questions, comments for Dr. Dykle?
Just that these people have always been good to work with, always been good to work with.
Even Jim.
All right, all in favor? Be 6-0. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dykle. Next, we have the appraisals for the Clark County Auto Auction in Charlestown property.
Board, as you know, we are always looking for ways to improve our school corporation, and there are times in which we need to secure property in order to make that happen. The Clark County Auto Auction is a piece of property that is available. It is something that could be a tremendous location for a new bus service center, which is really in need. We know that we've been talking about this paving project, and so we don't know about the timing of all of this, but we do know that if we're going to try to move forward, we need to have that property appraised. And as you know, the process is that we have to hire 2 independent appraisers. They appraise it, then the most we can offer is the average of the 2 appraisals. And so We've had a chance to look at the property. We're very impressed by it. We think it would be a tremendous fit. Whether or not we can make it all work from a financial perspective, that's yet to be determined, but we need to do the appraisals to get it started. So that's one area that we're asking permission. The other area we're asking permission to consider is appraising some property off of 403 in the Charlestown area between Bethany and Stacy Roads. As you know, Board, with the potential growth in our school corporation and looking at potential facility needs, you can never have enough land, and we think that it's a great piece of property for a potential facility. We are requesting the ability to appraise. It's a 70-acre piece of land. We'd like to appraise the easternmost 35 acres as well as the entire 70 acres, so we have a couple of options to look at and to consider. So I'm asking permission to perform appraisals on those pieces of property as I've suggested.
Thank you,
Move
Dr.
to
Miller.
approve.
Thank you, Ms. Gilkey. And thank you, Ms. Zolman. I think I saw you first. Any questions for Dr. Dykle? I'm sorry, Dr. Mellon.
You can answer them too.
Yeah. All right. All in favor? Be 6-0. Thank you. Next is the contract with the e-learning summer conference spotlight speaker.
Right, we continue to work to get our speakers for this large conference that we're having on July 24th. This contract will be with Amanda Dykes, who is a teacher and a coach from Alabama. She's really focuses on STEM and project-based learning, so we'd like to engage in a contract with her.
Okay, thank you. All right, have a motion. Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Questions, comments? All right, all in favor? Be 6-0. Thank you. Next is the common school loan application.
Right, these loans come available every 6 months, and working with Dr. Dykle, they are low-interest loans that help to offset the impact of tax caps with capital projects. You can get these loans under the area of construction or technology, and we've been using them for technology to help us offset our one-to-one project and renovations, continued kind of replacements of whiteboards and classroom technology.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Gilkey. Questions, comments? All in favor? Be 6-0. Thank you. Next is the contract extension, Bev Shipper.
My monthly meeting with you to talk about speech. And what we're doing here is just continuing Bev Shipper's contract. She's working at Thomas Jefferson. We've combined 2 contracts in order to cover that school. And she's done a really good job according to the principal, and we'd like to continue her for the remainder of the year.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Ms. Gilkey. Thank you, Ms. Zolman. Any questions, comments? No? All right. All in favor? Be 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is the 2015-16 Curtis and Labbers contract.
This is just a data program that we have in order to collect data on our students with disabilities. We use it actually with all 3 corporations, so it is through the special ed co-op, and it's a renewal. We've continued to use them. We would like to move away from using them, but as I've checked around the state, almost everybody is returning to them because just to make sure that we have a more accurate count.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Hall.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Gilkey. Any questions, comments? All right. All in favor? Be 6-0. Thank you. All right, next item is a facilities condition and enrollment forecast report. I think Mr. Lake and Dr. Mellon are...
Yes, while Mr. Lake makes his way here, Board, as you are aware, we entered in some time ago to an agreement with Covert Hawkins to conduct a comprehensive facility study. I know that to some people, it's been a challenge because of the time involved, but it is such a huge undertaking, and it has such a potential significant impact on everything we do in our corporation. We've got to make sure we do this correctly because it's going to impact so many people. So I know there's been a little frustration out there about how much time it's taken, but it's essential that we make sure that we go through this process the right way. So tonight is really step one, where we want to lay out the conditions and enrollment forecast. Why are we in need of studying potential facility enhancement in our school system? So at this point in time, I appreciate Jamie Lake, his guidance, his leadership, and he and his firm, Covert Hawkins. So Jamie, turn it over to you.
Okay, great. Go ahead, Renee, to the next slide. It's going to be, this is truly an executive summary of what we're finding in the facilities assessment. The facilities assessment is a huge document. It has all kinds of supportive documentation for the generalities that I'm going to talk about tonight. And that's truly what we're going to talk about tonight, is just some general items of findings. Next slide, please. This was a great quote by Dr. Mellon. I think it sets the tone for why the board is doing what they're doing with the facilities assessment. And here's just some facts about Greater Clark that some people may or may not know. It's the 21st largest school district in the state. It serves a student population of approximately 10,500. Serves communities Jeffersonville, Charlestown, New Washington. Geographic district of 215 square miles, 12 elementary schools, 6 secondary schools, 5 specialized school facilities, 3 ancillary service buildings, pre-K through 12th grade, almost 2.3 million square feet of space under their control, and almost 367 acres of land to maintain. And there's just a list of those buildings that I think everybody's familiar with most of them. The enrollment forecast report, we definitely want to share with you the findings of Dr. Brudvig's enrollment forecast. And what this is it's a delivery of student enrollment projections for a 10-year period through 2024. And it's based upon current enrollment, estimated births, and future home, or expected home construction. Dr. Brudvig does forecast modeling professionally. And here's just a key summary of findings. Resident births were at a historic high from 2006 to 2009. Before that, they were at a fairly constant number, and after the peak, the number is higher than before the peak. It's fairly consistent. Residential construction has increased slightly over the housing bust. It's not nearly as high as the boom, but it's on a recovery. What the findings were is that in the short term, New Washington, Charlestown area are very highly tied to residential construction. That residential construction that has been forecast at the time of these findings are in the city proper of Jeffersonville, but it's that area between Jeffersonville and Charlestown in that growth area. And these are just some items that impact school enrollment, students today, births, residential construction, and infrastructural improvement and business development. Economic development factors that are happening in our area that I think everyone's aware of: East End Bridge, the long-range business developmental impact is fairly unknown. However, it has an impact on future for our schools. River Ridge, with the continued development of businesses, the growth of businesses at River Ridge, that is a great indicator of bringing people to our communities. And what those impact on the schools are, again, are fairly unknown at this time, but fairly less certain. But there are indicators that they would bring students to our school corporations. These are some of the assumptions of what the business development economic impact is: slow and steady growth in the long run. Near-term impacts on the schools are really minimal, but these are more of a long-term impact. Birth rates, we do have a continued growth of birth rates. Residential building is growing. Enrollment change, we see a larger growth at the elementary level. In public enrollment, the percentage of children entering the public schools is not changing. And then we're just going to go through some slides that support some of those factors. These are the residential births, and you see the peak in the 2 circled years. The numbers after the peaks are higher than the numbers before the peaks. So we have this elevated level of resident births, which mean our elementary schools will have an increased number of students. The population by attendance areas, the green is Jeffersonville, red is New Washington, the blue is Charlestown areas, and we see a growth in the Jeffersonville and Charlestown numbers and really a decline in New Washington. This is based on residential growth at the time of the study. And this just shows the residential building. We have the housing boom and the housing bust, and then we have a recovery. So we have a slow drawn out, long drawn out U shape of recovery for residential growth. These are single family units. The next slide is multifamily. It follows the same kind of growth rate, although we have a much larger jump in the multifamily units. This is the base forecast. It's important to know that most school corporations in the state are undergoing a decline in student enrollment. Greater Clark is experiencing a slow and steady growth, really a maintenance of maintaining the students that they have, which is a positive thing, and actually has a slow and steady growth. So over the course of the 10-year period, we're showing this is a baseline forecast, which is kind of a middle line conservative number, a growth of over 1,000 students. And then there's a high and a low, and what we're finding is since the study, we're actually slightly above base forecast, so that's a good thing. And then this just shows where that growth is happening. The largest growth is in the K-5. Go ahead, Renee. A fairly level growth at 6 to 8, the middle school level, and again, a really flat line growth or a slower, steady growth at the high school level. So then we have a conditions evaluation report. And really what this is this is an analytical evaluation of the entire facility. We look at everything. We look at the bricks, the mortar, the roofs, the windows, the condition of the tile on the floors, and we have an incredible amount of data to support that. What we're going to talk about today are complete generalities and how those evaluations affect these three key items of student learning, student health, and student safety. We're going to start with the building age. With all of the elementary schools, we have really an old stock of elementary schools overall. The exception would be the newest facility at Riverside, but shortly here that building will be 10 years old. So as we look, we always have the new building syndrome. Everybody remembers the new building, and before you know it, it's 10, 20 years old. Then building size is a factor. What's important here is the number of buildings and the enrollment and then the capacity that they're at. Several of them, like Utica, although it's a newer school, it's one of the larger schools at 506, it's overcrowded and overburdened and needs to be kind of given a break. And some of the others are very small in size, such as Maple at 248, Spring Hill at 240, and then some of the other larger ones that are over the 500 mark, Wilson being the largest at the time of these numbers at 514. And again, the secondary buildings as well, showing the number of capacities. Some of the middle schools, for instance, are at high capacity, where the high schools are more in the range that we want to see. We want to see in the range of in the high 80s. That shows that you're utilizing the building properly, but you have some space. One thing we skipped over really kind of fast was the age of the middle schools, but you can go back just if you would, I'd appreciate it. The middle schools, I would show Charlestown Middle School and River Valley Middle School built in 1979 and haven't really had anything done since. So the middle schools are really an item of old buildings that need a lot of work. Parkview had work done in '87. And of course, the high school buildings had major work done at the 2010 building project. Thank you, Renee. Sorry about that. So building condition, I'm going to go through this very quickly, but Tom Durkin was an engineer that was working with us. He's a mechanical engineer, and I thought over lunch he said this to me, and a lot of people don't like it, but I write down quotes when I hear them all the time, even if you're having lunch with me. But he said most school districts have a building or two which fall behind the others and need attention. However, as a collection of buildings, the inventory of elementary school buildings at Greater Clark are the worst conditions he's seen in his entire career. He's been a PE for over 35 years. I've been working in K-12 education. This month will be 20 years for me. And I would agree with that statement wholeheartedly. Next slide. I know you can't really read this, but it's more of a graphic visual, and I want you to see the next series of slides based on this. But what we've done is kind of a stoplight. So what we're looking for is green. We're looking for good with the green. Red is kind of bad. The orange color is like an amber, kind of a warning. And then right in the middle is the average. So an empty circle is average, which means the condition is acceptable, and there's some relative expected renovations required. And then you have above average, which means it's in very good condition, very little improvements are needed, and excellent or new would be something like Riverside, where continued use is expected, no major work is required. Then you have kind of the below average, where short-term use is expected, and you're looking at major renovations. And then failing, this is a point where replacement is imminent, almost immediate. So I know it's hard to read, but these are the elementary schools, and this is building envelope, so the exterior of the building, elementary schools, and we have all the elementary schools listed. And what we've done is, this is just a summary sheet, and behind it in the assessment, there's hundreds, literally hundreds of pages that support this findings on this scale. But this gives us just a quick summary of a graphic representation of comparison of one building to the other. And what I'd point out is, Riverside, for instance, is a new building. You see the amount of green, and that's good. That's exactly what you want. You want a new building, approximately 10 years old now, that is still at that level. And then you have other buildings that have a lot of orange approaching red, which is the failing state. And we're going to have these for a lot. This is the secondary schools for building envelope, and you would see that the high schools at the far line have a lot of green because they just went through a building project. The middle schools that haven't had a lot of work done or very little are in the failing or below average rate. And then we do this for every category, and we'll just do this kind of quickly. This is building interiors. And again, looking at Riverside as an example of a new building, and looking at some of the older buildings in comparison to one another, you can see the immense amount of orange and red that we're dealing with. Building interiors at the secondary schools, again, with the high schools going through their building projects recently, you would expect them to score higher, and the middle schools haven't had any work since their original building. This is the site and property. One of the issues at Greater Clark are small properties. You heard tonight about appraisals for properties. That's very important because you can never have enough property in schools. And what we're dealing with, if any of you drop your kids off at any one of the elementary schools, the middle schools, even the high schools, they are very constricted with their sites and properties. So that's why you're seeing in a lot of these categories, they're scoring low. Size of property, configurations, pick up and drop off, athletic facilities, particularly at the middle schools and so forth, are very difficult. Lack of parking, lack of access, those type of things. And those all predicate into safety and security and functionality and programming of these buildings. So you see those as well at the secondary schools as well. And then these are just some images of the variety of the buildings. These are just to be representative. Many of the buildings have the same issues. Most of the issues with the condition of the building have to do with age. We have an old stock of elementary school buildings. It took a long time to get to this point, and it's going to take some time to address all the issues. There are many issues to deal with. So these are just some images of the exterior, single pane glass and windows, roofs, canopies, doors, everything that's kind of just a function of age. It's also because of its age, it also has to deal with the type of mentality that it was built on. So today's educational practices, today's educational programming is very different than it was even in the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, 60s, when some of these buildings were built. So you have original casework that doesn't meet health codes. You have furniture that no longer works for programming and STEM researching today. Those type of things. Very narrow corridors, finishes like carpet that are falling apart. A lot of the gyms like JJ and TJ, if you've been in those, you know the challenges with those gymnasiums. They're not air conditioned, they're tiny, they're non-functional in many ways. And then just photos of the conditions of some of the sites. Fencing. It's amazing how much fencing the school corporation has and how difficult it is to replace fencing. And some of the issues that we need there, just as a small item: benches, playgrounds, athletic facilities, tracks, tennis courts. very expensive items to keep up, but they are high community items. Building safety is the next issue, and again, we look at life safety items. Again, the newer buildings are going to score much higher than the older buildings, and this is a variety of things. This is passive security, active security, accessibility, fire alarms, sprinklers, all the types of things that add to the safety and security of the facility. And again, at the secondary schools are pretty well taken care of because the high schools were dealt with in 2010. The middle schools, on the other hand, need a lot of addressing. And these are just some examples, and some of them the school has been taking care of little by little as they can in a temporary measure, such as the unrestrained building access. The time we were doing the study here, at Bridgepoint, the unrestrained building access, as soon as you're in the door, you have free access to the building. And we've been working very hard to get rid of those, even on a temporary measure. And at that building, there's a temporary measure that was in place before the start of the school year that allowed that to happen. Inaccessible entries, large distances from vestibules to office. These are all issues for the safety and security of the building, inhabitants, and students and the staff. Locker commons is an old concept, and it's an issue in the buildings, particularly at the middle schools. Non-accessible restrooms. Accessibility is a huge problem in these schools, particularly at the middle schools. Many of the older elementaries were not built and constructed and are now in non-compliance. One of the largest issues we have to deal with happen in several of our schools is the open concept of the classrooms. This is in North Haven Elementary School. It was designed as an entirely open concept facility, as well as Charlestown Middle School and River Valley Middle School. These just show lots, tight buildings, lots, vehicle access, loading, unloading. There's a huge issue with parking and access and pickup and drop off at the majority of our buildings. And these are just items of antiquated fire alarms, systems, life safety issues that need addressed, sprinkler systems where they do exist. We have some non-compliance issues by today's code. And ideally, you want every building to have a fire sprinkler system, and a majority of our buildings do not, or just have it in one particular piece like a stage. Lack of sidewalks and accessibility, non-compliant egress routes from the building. This is a rampant issue at most of our buildings. Here again, just egress, non-compliance with things like doorknobs. People don't realize it's a very expensive process to replace door hardware. You know, it's approximately $800 a door. So when you have hundreds and hundreds of doors, it's a very difficult thing to do. Building health, this is mostly plumbing, mechanical, electrical, and technology issues. Basically, we have antiquated systems in most of these buildings. This is showing plumbing systems. Again, the newer buildings like Riverside are going to score high with all of these issues, and most of the other buildings are going to score fairly low. Utica does pretty well. In some of the areas where we've had some major renovations internally, it's not like Wilson's a good example, had a 92 renovation. So it scored high in a portion of the building, but the remainder of the building hasn't been touched since its original construction. Again, the secondary schools, the high schools score very high because of their renovations. They scored low right before that, and the middle schools are in dire need of a lot of work. This is mechanical systems. This is probably the largest issue in the schools. Mechanical systems are huge. There are many schools which are at the absolute failing score. In other words, there are mechanical systems in buildings we can't believe are even still running. Spring Hill is a great example, where the mechanical system is at the end of its life. And it really just has to do with age. It has nothing to do with custodians. It has nothing to do with maintenance. They're very well maintained. They're very well taken care of. These are systems which just had a 20 or 30-year life, and these buildings are beyond those lifespans, and they need major work. Where these do score very high, the school has put together a emergency project, like at Bridgepoint, for instance, to replace units, and very costly units in some of these buildings may or may not be worth the expense, to be honest with you. Again, at the high schools are very well taken care of. The middle schools need a lot of work with mechanical systems. And then electrical. Electrical systems are original in every one of these elementary schools. They are based on age. Many of them don't deal with technology pressures. The service sizes are low. The distribution is poor. There's panel boards that are antiquated, no longer made, they can't get parts for. They're buying them off eBay in many cases to try to get pieces. Anything they can do to keep these things running. Electrical systems are at failing rate in most of these elementary schools. Secondary schools, again, the high schools score high. The middle schools need incredible amount of work, particularly at Parkview, where a lot of the service entrance issues are a big problem for these buildings. And these are just some pictures. I know they're hard to see, but mechanical systems here, these are plumbing systems where boilers and water heaters, these are mostly water heaters, they're just aged equipment. They're antiquated systems. They're extremely inefficient, very costly to run. These are systems that a lot of times, go ahead, Renee, that have to run throughout the year. These are pool heat exchangers, which are antiquated at the end of their life. These are drain repairs in kitchens, which are, in some cases, take incredible amount of work just to keep them sanitary. Go ahead, Renee. Boilers. Boilers are an issue. They have a lot of aged, ancient boilers, for instance, absolutely antiquated systems. Propane-fired boilers, incredibly inefficient. Propane is, you know, the price has gone through the roof here lately. And they're just incredibly difficult to maintain. So some of these systems have to run 12 months of the year. So you're actually heating the buildings when you're trying to cool them, just because of the way the systems, original systems are made. And you can see some of the effects of the indoor quality as a result of the mechanical systems. And this affects the kids. You see these ceiling tiles sagging, just the disrepair, just because of age of some of the units and the systems and just some of the equipment here. And electrically as well, lights, lighting fixtures, lighting kinds of lighting that is no longer efficient to use, incandescent lights versus LEDs, anything they can do to just keep these things operable. Go ahead, Renee. And these are just more examples of it. These are exit signs held together with twisty ties, anything that they can do to keep some of these fixtures running. It's just very difficult. Antiquated lighting systems. And lighting is huge for kids because it affects our students tremendously, their ability to learn in an environment, particularly special education or kids that have hypersensitivity. We have a large population in Greater Clark of hypersensitivities in students, both at a high level and a lower level in students. Lighting affects them greatly. And these are just pictures of antiquated panel boards that are no longer made, and these are rampant throughout our buildings. Go ahead, Renee. So a summary of findings, I know I'm going through these quickly, and these are greatly generalized terms, but the elementary schools in general are in the worst physical condition of all of our school stock. They have the greatest needs for improvement. Several have reached the need for actual replacement because the investment in the additions and renovations would exceed the cost of replacing them. 9 of 12 of our elementary schools are at the point where they need major additions and renovations or complete replacement. That's huge for a school corporation. Small facilities cannot support today's educational program. Tiniest schools are no longer able to exist because of the way that the state funds us as school systems. The programming cannot be supplied or afforded at those schools like they can at the larger schools. The number of the small school facilities are not affordable, and they're not well placed geographically in our school district. The age of facilities are not efficient to maintain or operate, and as a result, we have a great inequity amongst our elementary schools. We have schools like Riverside and Utica that can produce a certain level of educational opportunities for our kids. We have other schools like Maple, for instance, as an example. Because of its size and its age, they just cannot provide some of the programming. And the open concept at North Haven is detrimental to education and safety concerns. At the middle schools, we have an aged schools, group of 3 schools. Generally, they're large facilities. They were built very well. They're built like tanks, and they're well placed. So we have a lot of good things going for us at the middle schools. They are in great need of upgrades, mainly due to its age, but they are ready for renovation within their existing building envelope. Doesn't mean that we don't need some small additions, but really we have a lot of square footage to work with at the middle schools. But they're horribly configured, and they're incredibly inefficient in their layouts. We can fix all that. The age of the facilities are not efficient to maintain and operate. The open concept at 2 of the 3 middle schools are detrimental to the education and safety concerns. The high schools are a different story. Obviously, they are in very good condition. They were dealt with in 2010. They are the flagship communities for the school or flagship facilities for their communities and for the school corporation. The sheer area of buildings left within the buildings, however, people don't realize there are large areas of those buildings that were left untouched in those projects. So there still are future renovations needed. Athletic and support facilities have great needs, and the value of programming are just immense. For instance, at Jeffersonville High School has 433,000 square feet. About 200,000 square feet of that building were included in the 2010 project and were taken very well good care of. But there's over 200,000 square feet that are original construction, and it's things like the gymnasium, auditoriums, art rooms, the wrestling facilities, all those types of things. Charlestown High School, for instance, basically reconstructed, and it was done very well. It's a beautiful school. Their auditorium is untouched. So there are large volumes of space in those buildings that are still untouched. And then I know that's a general whirlwind through your facilities, but I hope that gives a kind of wets your whistle for what we're looking at.
Board, I know you may have questions. A couple of comments. You know, I'm very proud of our maintenance and custodial staffs. And I think that Jamie mentioned that, and I just think that's important to note, that they've done a great job maintaining facilities that in many cases are outdated. So I appreciate their commitment. But we have to overcome our facilities in most of our buildings daily. Our students and staff deserve better. We've got great programming, we have great students, staff, parents. That's not the issue. But the buildings have to be overcome on a daily basis in terms of all these factors that Jamie has mentioned. I'm concerned with the bridge being built, the East End Bridge in particular, and what may happen to us if we don't do something to our facilities. And I don't know what that something is yet, but if we're not really actively seeking to do something, my worry is that the bridge will make it easier for people to perhaps live in Oldham County and drive across the bridge to work in River Ridge. And we can't afford that. We need to be concerned about our overall community, and our overall community will be benefit from people living and going to school and working in Greater Clark. And our facilities need to be competitive. There are going to be up to 18,000 new jobs in this area in the next 5 years. 18,000 people. We don't have enough people living in this immediate area to fill all those jobs. We'll have people coming in from all over the country. And they're going to be looking very seriously at every aspect because their children's education is number one. And I don't want to give them any excuse not to choose Greater Clark. The options moving forward, you know, as you know, there's a lot of consideration here. There's a lot of work to be done. So today and tonight was all about making sure that you were well aware of the reasons why we need to at least consider and look at doing something. Student learning, student health, student safety. That's really what it's about. It's all about our students. That's our number one priority. So, but I also understand as you think about taxpayers, that we have to do something that's sensible and reasonable for them as well. There has to be a balance. So whatever options and we eventually bring forward to you to consider, I want you to know that that's always in our mind, is what's reasonable, what's balanced for the benefit of our kids. So I don't know if you have any other questions or comments.
I have a comment. Tonight, we gave the teachers and all the other employees a 2.5% raise, and I think all of us would like to give more. But I find that our general public does not, and now we're talking about spending lots and lots of dollars, perhaps, on facilities. And when I talk about that in our community, I always get, why don't you spend that money on this, this, and this? So I think we need to be very careful about helping our public to understand that facility dollars cannot pay for salaries. Cannot. So
I think that's to educate our community to understand the silos
right,
that we have in educational funding.
right.
We have a $96 million budget We just can't spend all $96 million in any one particular area with their specific stipulations. But most people don't know that.
No.
And so you're absolutely right. We're going to have to educate.
All right, other comments?
With the safety concerns that we have, we really need to look into those schools like North Haven, Charlestown Middle School, River Valley, because to me, when I looked at that, those were the schools that had the greatest amount of safety concerns, not having any doors on the rooms and the open concept. So I think those should be getting some high priority.
It's an interesting, my daughter's at River Valley. She's in 7th grade, and both my boys went through River Valley, and it always worried me in that setting. And I was lucky enough to accompany the police during a intruder drill. And it's amazing what the staff has done to deal with the limitations of the building. And it's amazing what they do. And it's incredible, but the building is a limitation. And like Dr. Mellon said, when the building becomes a hindrance, becomes the issue, becomes the lack of the tool for the teacher, that's where, those are things that you have to address. And the safety and security, absolutely, there are issues in those 3 buildings.
And Teresa, that open concept, just for the benefit of the public, it's called that open concept. Well, open concept is no walls, no doors. So if you walk into those buildings, North Haven, Charlestown Middle, and River Valley, technically, if there weren't big shelves in the middle or in between, you could basically look from one end of the building all the way to the other end. So everything that's in there to sort of divide rooms is artificially placed. So you're trying to listen to your teacher, but you can also hear teachers in other rooms speaking. I personally, whenever I visit, I'm amazed how well our kids can focus and pay attention despite that. So you're making a great point.
Jamie, I want to thank you and Hal and all the employees, Covert Hawkins, a great job. And it's like, I feel like it's like you don't know how messy your room is till you start cleaning it out. And I think you've cleaned out our corporation and showed us what's dirty, what needs to be replaced, things, areas of concern. And it's going to be a major undertaking. But I think for the betterment of Clark County and Greater Clark County Schools, it's a move we got to make. We got to move forward, and we got to attack it head on. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I'd just like to say it's 36 years since we built River Valley. And when we built it, a gentleman just like you that said that was the absolute best concept there was. And we all bought into that, and it was. And our children got a good education, a very good education in Greater Clark with those buildings, just like that. But what we have to do is be able to tell people how that has changed, why it has changed, and not scare people to death, but because society has changed and our lives have changed, then this has to change as well. And people will have a hard time understanding that unless we can do that. And it isn't hard for me to understand it was at first, because we were so proud of what we did. And we were cutting edge. There was no doubt about that. But it just doesn't work anymore. And we have to be able to explain that to people, that it just doesn't work.
That's perfectly stated. There are so many educational concepts that come and go. Locker commons, open concepts, offices in the middle of the building. They all have great ideas and they all work. And there's an open concept building is a culture of a building. Right. You have to buy into it. Every teacher has to buy into it. And if everybody's buying into it, educationally, it can work still very well. It's difficult because a lot of today's teachers aren't taught to buy into that concept or aren't taught in that facility model. And as a result, it's not the teacher's fault. It's just a disconnect of educational programming today and a facility. And again, that's where the facility is holding back the educational standard.
And it's not safe.
And the safety issue is a whole different
36 years
level.
ago, it was safe.
Right, absolutely
That's the difference.
Jamie, thank you for the report. I mean, I'll be honest with you, it's sort of a punch in the gut. When I look at these charts that you've put together. I mean, I've been in some of the schools, but as Mr. Hall elated, I haven't seen that level that you've seen. And it's distressing. I got to admit that. I mean, I tend to listen to the opinions of the experts, and you had mentioned Mr. Durkin saying it's the worst he's seen in 35 years. So I think we're better than that. I think we're going to have to take a really hard look at this, and I think we're going to have to get this problem fixed. Now, I don't know if it's a big fix or a little fix, but it's got to be some kind of fix. So I appreciate you opening our eyes to that, and we've got work to do on it. We've got work cut out for us on it. So. Anyone else?
Well, I'll just say, our staff, they deserve buildings that they can be proud to teach in, and our students deserve buildings that they can learn in. And when you look at pages 25 and 26, and you see the ages of it's not rocket science. It's pretty clear to see that we've got to make some changes and some improvements. I mean, for almost 30 years, we really didn't do much. And now we've got to pay the piper.
That's a great point right there. For 30 years, you didn't do much. And that's not to say that that was a bad thing. It was just a decision. It was a process. It was a direction. But you're a large school corporation. You have a number of buildings. You have over 20 some odd buildings, 25 buildings or so. And if you just dealt with one building a year, it would be 3 decades before you got back to the building that you just dealt with. You can't do that. You have to constantly be doing something, and you'll never catch up. At some point, you have to stop, and you have to collect the issues, and you have to address them head on. School Corporation did that with the high schools, and took a big bite out of a lot of problems at those high schools and turned those red circles to green stars and green circles, and have done very well. And as a result, have drawn people to those buildings and made the communities proud of those buildings, and have given, more importantly, have given the teachers and the students the tools for education. Because at the end of the day, the building is an educational tool. And when it's a 1979 building that hasn't changed, and education has come so far since 1979, the environment hasn't, the tools haven't changed. It's a struggle every day, and that's kind of where you're at, so.
Thank you.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Thank you. Good summary. Very good summary. Okay, we're down to reports and requests. So, Ms. Perkins, anything?
Gosh,
No?
after all that, no, thank you.
A lot of requests, right?
Yeah, a lot of requests.
All right, Ms. Ullman?
No, thank you.
Ms. Kraft?
Thank you.
Mr. Hall?
No, thank you.
Ms. Gilkey?
No.
Okay. Dr. Mellon, no public comments on non-agenda items?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Okay, board comments. We'll go back through. Ms. Perkins?
No, thank you.
Ms. Ullman?
I want to thank Charlestown High School for the Iron Chef opportunity to be a judge and for the tasty food that we got to eat. And I even tried the pineapple thing, and I couldn't get it to work. So I need a better recipe for that. But it was good. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kraft?
I have the privilege of going to Parkview to judge, and I'm excited about that. It's the drama department, of course. That's one of my pets, anyway.
All right, thank you.
There you go.
Mr. Hall?
I just want to say congratulations to Coach Pritchard. Great job at Charlestown High School.
Ms. Gilkey? No, good. All right, I'm good. Dr. Mellon?
One last thing, Board. We just recently were notified that a preschool grant that we had applied for through the state, we were accepted. We'll be bringing more information to you, but what it's going to do is it's going to allow us to, we believe, have a preschool in all 12 elementaries instead of 7 of our 12 elementaries. We're working on the specific plans, looking at, but the grant will fund teachers for each of those, so 5 more preschool sites. It'll also focus on those students who are living in poverty. A portion of the grant has to provide a level of service to those families. It is a very exciting, and I need to give a lot of thanks to Ann Schneff, because, she was the one that put all the paperwork in, and her heart and soul is advocating for kids. So we'll look forward to bringing more details forward to you, but it's really good news.
We need to.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you, thank you.
All right, we've come to that time. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins.
Second. Yeah,
Thank you, Ms.
third.
Kraft. All right,
Second, third.
all in favor? All right, good night, thank you.